Today I'm flying from Australia to New Zealand with Qantas
and also from New Zealand back to Australia with Air New Zealand
to see exactly who does international short-haul economy the best.
But as well as showing you what the experience is like, what it's like on board, the service, the food you get, and comparing the two aircraft that both Qantas and Air New Zealand fly.
I'm also going to be showing you whether paying extra for the special seat that both Qantas and Air New Zealand offer on their international short-haul economy is actually worth it. So let's run both flights side by side to see exactly who is the best when it comes to the international short-haul economy experience, starting with the check-in process. That's the check-in experience with Qantas done here at Melbourne Airport. Very quick. There's lots of staff members here and lots of desks, to be fair, so it's normally quite efficient here when you are getting on board a Qantas flight from Australia. Now, I was a bit early for the flight and they did tell me that I couldn't check in, but because I don't have any bags, I've only got my backpack because I'm traveling just overnight today. They let me on the flight early, so do bear that in mind. Don't turn up to the airport too early if you are flying international short-haul economy and you have got bags. So the staff here with Qantas, as always, were great. The check-in experience was no issues. I was through, to be honest, in about 30 seconds. Got my boarding pass, got a fast pass to get through security as well. And now, only about 5 or 6 minutes after being at the check-in desk, I'm through security and here in the terminal.
And here I am at Auckland International Airport on a chilly New Zealand morning, ready to check in now for my flight back from New Zealand to Australia with Air New Zealand. Let's see what the check-in experience is like here. All right, so slightly different to what we had at Qantas. And so probably if I had to compare the two experiences of checking in between checking in for Qantas at Melbourne International and checking in for Air New Zealand at Auckland International, out of the two experiences, I think I'd have to say that Air New Zealand has been my favourite so far.
So when it comes to the two different types of aircraft that we're going to be flying in this exercise, the first one I'm about to get on for Qantas is a Boeing 737, and then the next flight with Air New Zealand is going to be an A320neo. Now do bear in mind that Qantas's fleet is changing a little bit at the moment, and the Boeing 737 that I'm flying on is actually being slowly phased out. Qantas are bringing on board their A321 XLRs, extra long range aircraft, the first of which was actually delivered to the country as I'm recording this only a couple of weeks ago. Now, one real advantage that Qantas have over Air New Zealand when it comes to the aircraft itself is actually the size of the fleet. Now, as I said, Boeing 737, that's what we're on today. Qantas are currently operating 75 of those. The A320neo that will be on with Air New Zealand have only got 23. So one thing to bear in mind if you are traveling international short haul and choosing between the two airlines is if you are delayed, if there's a mechanical issue with the aircraft, what is the likelihood that that airline will be able to get you onto another flight anytime soon? And what I found in the past is because Qantas have got such a bigger fleet, they're normally pretty good at replacing it quite quickly for you.
So Auckland Airport's been undergoing a bit of a refurbishment over the last few years, and that check-in process for me was seamless. The new kiosks that they've got downstairs for Air New Zealand, as you probably saw, there were lots of them, so no problems, I didn't have to wait. If you are dropping a bag, which I didn't have to today, but again, the bag drop area, there were plenty of people, they were all manned as well, so if you had any specific issues about your bookings or tickets, there were staff who were on hand. And then coming through departures, well, the security scanners are the newer scanners where you don't have to take iPads and laptops out of your bags. And here in the area where you've got the food and beverage areas where you're waiting at your gate for the aircraft itself, is fantastic. It's very spacious, it's very wide open. So I would have to say that when it comes to the check-in experience and the pre-boarding experience for the flights, I'd probably say that the experience here in New Zealand out of the two has been my favourite. One reason why you might be interested in the redevelopments here at Auckland Airport is if you are thinking of taking either Qantas's QF3, which goes from Sydney to Auckland and then Auckland non-stop to JFK, or NZ2, which is New Zealand's equivalent that goes from Auckland here to JFK as well. Those extra long range flights between New Zealand and New York non-stop are becoming really popular, and Qantas is putting on more flights between Australia and New Zealand as a result. They're going to introduce a direct flight from Adelaide to Auckland here later on this year in 2025 as well. So if you are thinking of flying between Australia and the US in the future, you might end up here at Auckland Airport, and if you do, it's a great place to transit through. So this is the special seat.
On board the Boeing 737 then here, this is row 4, and it's the first economy row immediately behind the business class section on board the flight. And the reason why I really love this one, and love getting this one if you can, is because of the extra legroom that you have in front of you. So for the small additional price that you're paying for this 3.5 hour flight that we're going to be on, I'm going to get a lot more extra legroom here. Plus the other advantage is I can slide my bag underneath the seat in front of me, so I can still access it during the flight. Alright, so this is 13A, this is my special economy seat.
Special seat.
Here on this short haul flight, and the reason why it's special is because on the Air New Zealand flights you have an option to book what's called a neighbour-free seat, which means that for this flight, even though I don't have as much leg room as I had on the Qantas flight, I will have this seat next to me guaranteed free, so I can kind of move out a little bit, relax, spread out. But the thing you do notice compared to the Qantas flight then obviously is much less leg room. So I've just got a normal standard economy seat in front of me, and with my bag underneath the chair in front, can't really stretch your legs out as much as you would be able to on the Qantas flight. However, having that seat next to you means that I know that I'm not going to have anyone kind of squashing into me, kind of getting in my space during this flight. Still working out which is best. I'll decide at the end of the flight, I think. We've just levelled off in the cruise now, and I think they're about to serve a meal service, and that's exactly what they did. Now, I'd ordered a special meal, and I'll come to that in a second, but on board my Qantas flight today, you would have had the choice of a braised beef and mashed potatoes, a tortellini with pea sauce, or the vegetarian option, which was a Japanese poke bowl. But as I said, I'd ordered the vegan special meal, and as with most other airlines, this came out first before they started serving the rest of the cabin. It was a pretty basic style meal, a pretty small plastic plate. There were no side dishes, there was no dessert, just this kind of macaroni pasta, which to be honest with you, tasted a lot better than it actually looked. We're about to get our food service here on the Air New Zealand flight, but instead of me telling you what the options are, what you would get if you were sitting here in economy, let me let the flight attendant tell you instead.
We have the hot breakfast, which is a omelette filled with cheese, chives, bacon, baked beans and a hash. The second option is a birch mousse, which is soaked oats with fruit and nuts, topped with a Greek yogurt and a berry compote. Both are served with a fresh fruit bowl salad and a blueberry muffin.
Let's talk pricing. Now, I actually paid points for the Qantas flight, but I paid cash for the Air New Zealand flight. And I hope you're sitting down when you hear this. The Air New Zealand flight, just a 4.5 hour flight in economy between Auckland and Adelaide, cost me over $1,000. Now, admittedly, that was because I did book it pretty late. So what I've done is I've looked at a range of fares over the next couple of months and kind of averaged out the prices that you would expect to pay outside of that. But in general, what you'll find for a Qantas flight, a short haul flight, I was paying anything between 373 to 430 Australian dollars. For the equivalent flight on Air New Zealand, it's about 334 to around 355 Australian dollars. However, when you look at that special seat, the special seat on Qantas costs $37, but the special seat on Air New Zealand is $60. So what you might save in the airfare, you could potentially use up by paying extra for the special seat. Now, if you don't get this special seat at all and you just want the base economy fare, then in general, it's pretty equivalent. After eating, I decided to check out the in-flight entertainment system on both flights. Now, on the Qantas flight in our special seat 4A, it's actually folded into the side of your seat down by your feet. And with the Qantas Boeing 737s being a relatively older fleet, I mean the youngest aircraft in their 737 fleet is 10 years old now, with the oldest, as I record this, being 23 years old. And when you compare it side by side to the newer screen on the Air New Zealand A320neo, you can see that one is a little bit bigger, the resolution is much better, and it runs a lot faster too. Alright, let's give this in-flight Wi-Fi a quick go. Now, I obviously couldn't test this on the Qantas flight because the in-flight Wi-Fi wasn't working, but here on Air New Zealand you need to put in an email address. I wonder if it'll work without your actual email. Oh, it does. Good. And that's it. Connected. That's actually really straightforward, and it's free for the entire flight as well, so no charges, even here in economy. Let's take a look at the two seats then that you get the differences between the Qantas flight and this Air New Zealand A320neo. The seats on board this aircraft are, well, they're a bit thinner, so they're not quite as padded as the seats on the Qantas 737. They also just feel a little bit, I don't want to use the word cheaper, but just a bit more plasticky, maybe a bit more sort of modern manufactured. The armrest is not quite as comfortable as the one on the Boeing 737. At this point in the flight, it was really just time to sit back and relax, and this is where the extra legroom that you get in row 4 on the Qantas 737 really makes quite a big difference. It was time to enjoy the views outside the window, and about an hour before we came into land, both flights actually handed out a little sweet treat. On Air New Zealand, I got this boiled sweet, whereas Qantas were giving out Lindt chocolate balls. And then it was time to land.
Welcome to New Zealand, everyone. The local time here in Auckland is 23
Welcome to
minutes.
Australia, everyone. For your safety, you must remain seated. Your seatbelt fastened until the seatbelt.
So which of the two then should you fly if you have the choice between Qantas and Air New Zealand? Well, based on those two flights, I've broken it down to a couple of different thoughts. First of all, in terms of the seat itself, forget the special seat for a minute, but just the everyday economy seat. I think Qantas wins that one because the seat is a lot comfier, as I was saying, than the Air New Zealand seat. The one on the A320neo is just a bit thinner. It's not quite as padded. It's a bit more plasticky. It's not as comfortable to sit in. When it comes to the food and beverage, I actually found the F&B service was a little bit better on Air New Zealand. I just thought there was a little bit more choice that they had. It was a bit more of a varied meal, and they really did look after us a little bit more during the flight. But we got an extra drink. They came through with like lollies as we were coming down on descent as well. There just seemed to be a little bit of a better F&B service on Air New Zealand compared to Qantas, so Air New Zealand wins that one. When you look at the in-flight entertainment system, well, again, it's a little bit unfair on Qantas because their in-flight Wi-Fi wasn't working on the flight that I was on. But I would probably have given it to Air New Zealand anyway, just because those screens are a little bit more modern. The touchscreen works really well. I like the way that you get the charging ports in the screens for your devices as well. And there just seem to be more choice of movies and TV shows to watch on the in-flight entertainment system. But then when it comes to the special seat,
Special seat.
should you pay to upgrade yourself on short-haul international economy to get one of those two special seats? Yes. And again, if you can afford to do that and you want a bit of extra comfort, for what I paid, it was $37 for the Qantas extra legroom seat and $60 for the Air New Zealand not having anybody sitting next to you seat. But which did I prefer? Do I prefer more legroom, or do I prefer guaranteeing that there's no one sitting next to me? And I have to say, and it's probably because I am 6'2", the leg room for me, the Qantas seat of having that extra space for your legs, I still would prefer to have more leg room than to have the space next to me clear, because I just think on those longer flights, if you can stretch your legs out, it really does make all the difference. Plus, out of the two, it was cheaper as well. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Which one out of the two would you fly based on what you saw? Would you fly Air New Zealand or would you fly Qantas? Also, what can I do in Adelaide for 5 hours? Next flight is not until 7 o'clock now. No, seriously, any ideas?
Check out this next video right here. I think you'll really like this one. Thanks for watching.